Hello Internet, welcome back to Tromso Twilight, the channel where I, Vincent, talk to you, the abyss, about books, movies, music I enjoy, find interesting, or a combination of the two. I want to talk to you about a concert I went to recently. I was in the UK a couple of weeks back. I went to see my family, see some friends, and to do some work with my band. I chose a specific weekend because me and the drummer in the band both really like a punk rap duo called Horror. Now, if you're watching this video, you probably heard of them, but if you don't know them, they're from New Jersey. They've been around for quite a while. I really like an EP they did earlier on that's a kind of cyberpunk EP that's got JPEG Mafia guesting on it. But their album from last year was called Tomorrow We Escape. It was one of my albums of the year when I did my video talking about my favorite albums from last year. I really love it. It's a kind of electronic, heavy rock, punk, rap, horrorcore mashup of different genres. Um, Continuously exciting. So when we found out that they were going to play, me and Harple from the band and a good friend of mine that I've known since I was a teenager, we decided that we would go and see them. Now, I didn't know. I thought that Horror were a pretty big name, but apparently they're not as big as I thought they were. So we were going to go to see them at a place called the Dome. And in my head, I was like, oh, that's probably what used to be the Millennium Dome, which is this huge venue in London. But no, the Dome is like a rock club in North London. So it's a pretty small venue, and we went up there to see them. And it was really interesting to see like the crowd that were there. It was a real mix. There were kind of goths, punks, there were older people, people older than me, there were some younger people, there were people who were gender ambiguous, there were still more men than otherwise, but there were quite a lot of women there. Quite a nice diverse crowd. And the first act that was on is a guy I've never heard of called N8NOFACE, who is on tour with Horror. So I'm going to assume you've never heard or seen N8NOFACE and explain what it was like for me to see him the first time. So the guy comes out on stage and he's on his own. He's got a completely shaved head. He's in his 50s. He's got like a moustache that goes down here, you know. Um, and he sort of stomps out onto stage. He's got this white t-shirt on that says something like "I fucking love you all so much" or something like that. And he looks like a sort of old school punk, like a skinhead punk from the 70s or 80s. And he moves around kind of in this very sort of jerky, sort of post-punk type of fashion. And he's playing synth pop type music that has like very banging beats that are almost like hardcore punk beats some of the time. The bass drum is mixed super high up. I think there are live instruments mixed into this, but it's all on a backing track. He's got one synth, and then he's doing vocals over the top of this. And he's sort of jerking around, and then he's like shouting into the microphone. He's putting the mic in his mouth, and then he like lifts up his t-shirt and puts it over his head, and he's like a hairless guy, quite ripped, and he's got like scars in his stomach that look like very serious stab wounds or gun wounds. And he's saying stuff like, this next song is about two homicides that happened at the high school that I went to. And then he does a tune that's called Kids in Love. That's just got this one riff that's like da 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 da, and over the top he's just telling two stories about like two murders. Or another song about like how the FBI are constantly harassing his family, and then the lyrics are like about a guy from the FBI coming knocking on his door to ask him about where his brother is because somebody's been killed. And then at the same time as like this is the sort of content, this is the vibe, he'll also just be saying like, "Oh, I love you guys so much. Oh, so thank you so much. I'm gonna cry." And he's sort of talking about how he's been doing music his whole life, but he's only been making money from it for 5 years, and he's in his 50s, and never give up on your dreams, and he's so happy to be here. He just makes music in his closet because he loves it for the art, and like it it's so sincere, and it's weird because all the movements and the dancing, he's like punching himself in the head, he's punching himself in the chest, um, and then he's doing these sort of like synthy, gothy punk songs alone on the stage. It's really interesting because there were obviously some people there who already knew who Nate No Face was, and who were really excited to see him. And then the rest of the crowd kind of, I think you're kind of bamboozled for the first sort of two, 3 songs, and then you're sort of not sure if you like what he's doing, and then he just keeps it going, and he's so in it, and eventually you're just like, you can't refuse him. It's just fantastic. So I was totally won over by Nate No Face. I've been listening to him a little bit since, but the live experience is something to behold if you get the opportunity. So then Horror came on, and they are a duo. It's a guy called Edie, or Yeti Bones, who is the guy who makes a lot of their music. He plays bass, guitar, synthesizers, and he also does vocals. And then the OGM is the other vocalist who is a rapper. So Yeti Bones is on the synths and triggering and has drum machines, samplers and stuff. Comes out and just plays some music, and it's just kind of on stage, like he's got like dreadlocks, paint on his face, and he's kind of just doing a sort of movement and playing the instrumental from the first track on their last album. And then the second track kicks in, which is like a very heavy, intense, exciting song, and the OGM comes out. But they also have a drummer. Now, the drummer is a guy called Billy Reimer, who played with the Mars Volta as well, or I don't know if he still does. He's been playing with Horror since 2020. I didn't know he had a connection to the Mars Volta. Harple told me after the show, but it does make sense because, I mean, his drumming was just extremely tight, very, very skilled. Obviously playing to a click, and you know, it never went out of time. It was never even like slightly loose, but it was still really expressive and exciting. So they're basically a trio on stage, and you've got 2 musicians, and then the OGM is just rapping, screaming and shouting as well. He's got like a microphone that looks like a telephone mic that makes the vocals kind of thin, so it cuts through a lot of the time all of the like bass and noise that's going on. They do sort of 2-3 tracks that are extremely aggressive and exciting, and the entire front half of the room just turned into a mosh pit immediately. I didn't get any great videos actually of how insane it was, but here's like a couple of real short clips. And after they've done a few songs, not very many songs, Yeti Bones, Edie, plays that song Gypsy Woman, you know, the like old 90s house track that goes la da dee la da da la da dee la da da. And he takes off some of what he's wearing, and under it he's got like a feathered top, like a sort of fashion piece. And he's wearing a leather skirt, and he's dancing almost like voguing on the stage with like sunglasses on. It hadn't occurred to me until that point that Horror had any sort of queer or feminine or effeminate or like draggy aspect, but somehow it made like total sense, that there is this kind of like side to what they're doing, and it made it kind of even more cool and exciting to me. Like I was like, oh man, all right, this is like they can lean into like a super aggressive hardcore rap persona, but at the same time they got space for this like black gay club house Vogue type of tradition as well. The audience had great energy for the whole show. There was a lot of dancing. There was a lot of pogoing. I'm too old for this. Like I had to go back a little bit. But my friend from school, he was down the front with his top off, like moshing. The OGM was like in the audience at some points. They were just super energetic. And then like right towards the end, the sound cut out. And the drummer kept playing, and they kept going, like they were still shouting into the microphones. I don't know, maybe they had line back, but like nothing was coming out of the PA. And after a while they kind of had to go off stage, and then they came back, and they did like a closing one or two tracks. But there were a good few minutes where it was like the show was stopped because they'd blown the PA in the venue. Like I think that they made so much noise that the fuse box went. To make up for it, like when they came back, the OGM like climbed up the scaffolding by the side of the stage and was like hanging from the top, which looked extremely dangerous, but was like a very cool punk rock kind of moment. The only thing that I feel bad about is like I've seen online that they brought Nate No Face out to do songs with them a lot of other places, and I'm wondering if that would have been the moment, like in the bit of the set that they had to cut because the sound went out. Okay, so I hope you like my little story about the concert. If you've seen them on this tour, let me know how it was. Jump in the comments. Let me know where you saw them. Let me know what you enjoyed about it, or what you thought about it. Let me know your opinions on Nate No Face. What a guy. What a unique guy. Um, yeah, and I'll be back again soon. Talk about a book or some movies or some other music. I hope to see you there. Thanks for listening.